This is Patrick Keane, and you're listening to the Matt Balaker podcast.
Today's guest is a longtime friend, a Super Bowl scholar who attended St. Catherine's Elementary School. He's a hilarious comedian who's been on Jimmy Kimmel, Dry Bar, and now the Matt Balaker podcast. Please welcome Patrick Keane. How you doing, Pat?
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Good to see you. It's been a while.
It has been, and I'm now back to your hometown, or at least your adopted hometown. Our production crew said you attended St. Catherine's Elementary School. Is that the case, Pat?
That's incredible. Yeah, that's a deep dive there. Yeah, I was actually at St. Clement's in Toledo, Ohio, and then we moved to Southern California when I was a kid, and I started going to St. Catherine's in Laguna Beach, in Orange County.
So what prompted the move from Ohio to the West Coast?
My dad was working with M&M Mars, like Starburst, Skittles, Snickers, M&M's, M&M Peanut, and he had a job transfer, and he was tired of the winters, and he wanted to give California a try. And yeah, that was a great time. You know, we had free candy around the house growing up.
You had free candy around the house growing up. So it's been downhill since, is what you're saying.
Yeah. It was downhill. I mean, he worked he worked there, then he worked at Haagen-Dazs ice cream, and we had free ice cream. So he was the candy man and the ice cream man at one point or the other.
So were you the most popular kid at St. Catherine's?
Yeah, it was pretty good. We had, we had some parties sometimes, and with no alcohol because it was just kids. And my dad would give out candy. And once the cops showed up because like the neighbors were complaining because everyone was hopped up on sugar, and they walk in and they're like, "What? It's what kids?" It's like after a flag football game or something. But you might end
Sorry, this is like the most wholesome cops busting. It's like high glucose level among kids who just finished an athletic event. Wow, this is growing up in Orange County, people. It's real.
Yeah, struggle's real. But he ended up, cops were laughing, and he ended up just giving the cops a bunch of candy to take home and stuff. But
he paid off the cops with some Mars bars.
Yeah. Do what you can.
So you obviously finished elementary school, and then take us to your high school days, Pat. What stands out?
We went St. Catherine's to Santa Margarita, which was a new Catholic high school at the time down in South Orange County. You might know it now as Modern Day's rival, Modern Day Servite, Santa Margarita, J. Sarah. Those are kind of the Catholic schools there in South Orange County. And there's more obviously in North Orange County and LA, but yeah, it's kind of the 90210 of Orange County. It was very homogenous, very very white. We excel in like some sports like swimming and diving and
beach volleyball.
Yes,
yachting is big.
Our equestrian team is bigger than our wrestling.
But since then, I mean, South Orange County is kind of a hotbed for professional talent. I mean, there's a lot of athletic factories. I mean, did you play with anyone that made it to the league or did anything of note?
We played. I was in the first class, so we didn't have a lot of top out. We sent a couple Ivy League kids, a couple kids to the Ivy League, and then later on came like the Finneran brothers who played football at Villanova, and then Carson Palmer was a quarterback. After I graduated, and that was pretty great to see, them win titles and get a Heisman. And yeah, it's become a powerhouse now, even for football. Not quite modern day, but we're always, we're Auburn to their Alabama, I guess.
I'll take that. And what was your sport of choice, Pat?
I played football and a little baseball, a little track.
A little football, a little baseball, a little track. Which of those three, what was your favorite?
Football. Football took me to Montana, Carroll College in Helena, where I got a scholarship to play football there. And I was never able to play. I hurt my knee in my last high school game. But the college still gave me the scholarship. I just worked as a trainer, manager.
Wow. So take us to the knee injury. I mean, you would have been probably first, second round pick before that.
Yeah,
so
right on.
What derailed your life, Pat?
Where were we? It was a playoff game, and it was like late in the game, and we were up. We were trying to ice the game, and it was like a third and long, and we completed the pass, and so I caught it, completed that gave us the first down. We ran out the clock, but I hurt my knee, had to get like kind of carried off the field, and I'm just thinking like, you're like, you knew there was something wrong. It wasn't just a bang up injury. I mean, it wasn't a hurt, it was an injury, and it was like, this doesn't feel right a couple days later. And so the next week we lost. I was out and had to get surgery, and we lost, and we were out of the playoffs. We played against Lawrence Phillips, who also I think won a Heisman with Nebraska.
Yeah.
And
He
yeah,
had some
he
other
was,
extracurricular activities that he
yeah,
was,
yeah.
well, hell of a player though, hell of a
He
player.
was great. They beat us. He didn't score against us, but they beat us 13-7. And yeah, they came in hungry. And yeah, and then I went to college and I tried to rehab for like a year, year and a half, and I just couldn't get it back. Back then it's the early 90s, and it's just by that, when you're that age, 19 to 20, and you take a year, year and a half off, and then I'm like, what? Like, that's so long. That's so long.
Well,
Like,
yeah, but I mean, your football career ended, Pat, in a blaze of glory. I mean, other
yeah.
than like a Super Bowl, that honestly, that's pretty badass. But I've been to Montana, uh, done some shows there, been on vacation, but I haven't lived there. Like, what's it like being an Orange County kid dealing with the Montana winter?
Yeah, that was tough. We used to joke that like when we went up there to Montana and we were shopping, that the guy at the store, the clothing store, is like, you guys are gonna need stronger coat, bigger, thicker coats than that. It gets 20 below, and we were like 20 below what? Like 20 below 80? That's 60. We can do that. But
Yeah.
they're like, no, it's 20, it's 20 below zero or whatever. And it was just like, oh my God. It was very very jarring at first, go from, South Orange County suburbs to the great Rocky Mountains. Helena is a beautiful town. It's right there, kind of where the flat meets the Rocky Mountains of the West. And tough transition, but like the second half of my sophomore year is when I started to love it. It took a year and a half, and I'm like, oh, what am I doing? Like, I'm looking at all the negative parts. High school was maybe too fun and too easy, and that made it me kind of snotty going into Montana and making fun of everything. But like my sophomore year, I'm like, wait a minute, I think I'm in love with this place.
Yeah, what switched?
I don't know. I think I went up there with a couple friends, and they took three of us from my team to go play, and then one of them left after his freshman year, went down to San Diego State and kicked, and another guy got offered a scholarship to Santa Clara, which was Brent Jones from the Niners. He was kind of financing that program for a while, and then they stopped. But those guys left, and I think I could see it not through the lens of football, and I just saw it through kind of like, oh, this is fun. We're college. We're, in the middle of nowhere. Bars are cheap. Everything's walking distance. These are genuine people. They're tough people. Like growing up in South Orange County, I don't see a lot of tough white kids. Like Montana has tough white kids, like tough kids that will
Yeah,
scrap.
what differentiates a tough white kid in Montana versus a average white dude in South OC?
I think I also went to private school, so I think there's plenty of
Okay.
tough white kids in Orange County, and Huntington surfers. A lot of when we grew up, surfers.
Huntington might be the epicenter of tough white kids, but I
Right.
digress.
And surfers, I think surfers were pretty tough back, like when I grew up, some of the 80s
Uh,
kids. There were a lot of more dropouts. A lot of them didn't, they had broken families. They weren't just coming in the beaches weren't as suburban as they are now, I think. But,
more localized.
or yes, yes. But up in Montana, it's kids working on ranches, kids moving animals, like we had a couple rodeo guys, which was kind of like minor league baseball, but they were so strong. I mean, they deal with horses, bulls.
Mhm.
Some of them came from farms, so they're dealing with cattle. And like, so they weren't necessarily socially, academically the sharpest, but you couldn't hurt them if you're in a fight, if you're blocking one of them or playing football. You're like, oh my God, this guy's solid. Like, has he been in the weight room that much? It's like not weight room strength. It's like
It,
farmland nature.
it's carrying a steer strength. It's different. So, did you think you would end up in Montana? Like, you took to it, but you obviously
No,
didn't
no,
stay
it
there.
was
What?
uh, it was one of my few scholarship offers. I think University of San Diego and Carroll and Laverne. Sounds like a couple girls. But I told, and my dad's like, I'm not paying for a 4-year party at UCSB. He was specifically saying you.
You're like, oh, but it'll be such a party day.
Yeah, yeah. And I was like, well, that's good because I didn't get in. I didn't get into UCSB or any
So,
UC or any Cal State.
take that, Dad.
Yeah, one step ahead of you. So yeah, and he loved Montana. He had some kind of distant relatives in eastern Montana he could visit, so it worked out really well. It was really fun. And, it's just off the 15. Helena's right on the 15, so you just went straight up from what do we go, the 57 to the 15 all the way up. Yeah, I mean, and at first I was like, I'm on Mars. Like, where am I? And my parents dropped me off, and it was like, oh my God. But yeah, you figure it out. You figure it out. I hope we're letting our kids figure it out a little. I'd like to see more of that because we want to control things all the way through now.
No, that's a good point. I think helicopter parenting used to be a term for toddlers. Now I think it's till they're 26
Jesus,
is
that's great.
the
That's
range.
funny. It's so true.
But I think like you're talking about these tough Montana kids. I mean, probably in Orange County we would pay thousands of dollars a week to send their kids to a dude ranch to try to toughen them up. I mean, there's nothing like the real deal of it. But
Yeah.
I want to move to your time over, I'll call it overseas. I'm a little envious, Pat. I was supposed to go to Japan. Gosh, what was it? 2009. And the next day, there was this massive hurricane. Or actually, the day before us to leave, there was that hurricane and
Oh my
the
God, that was the
earthquake
day
and
before. Oh my
a
God.
tsunami. No, God, I'm downplaying. It was a hurricane. It was a freaking like it was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
national, like, global event. And
Hundred
the
thousands
real
of people or hundreds or
yeah, and probably the biggest tragedy is I didn't get to go.
yeah, that was tragic.
I did not. So I want to make it about me. No, that
Yeah.
was obviously like, but I've never been. It's probably the top choice of places on my bucket list to go to. But you live there. Like, what's the story there, Patrick?
Yeah, the so it was the second half of my sophomore year, just when I'm getting to like Carroll College, my college, Montana. This offer comes to like, hey, we're looking to send two exchange students over to, or two students over to Japan. Kumamoto was the city we were in, Kumamoto. And I was like, it was in my history class, and for some reason it stuck with me. And I was like, maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll go to school in Japan for a year. And I went to inquire about it, and the lady was really excited because not a lot of Montana kids want to go to Japan. They're not going to leave Montana. It was a big deal for them to go to college in Helena. They're not going to leave Montana. So she was so like, it came down to like three of us, and they could only send two. And then one person inevitably dropped out for whatever reason. And they sent us, and that was bonkers because I was only 20 at the time, and I went to stay in Japan, and it was just a thrill, right? They made it so easy because there were a bunch of people coming to pick me up at the airport. It was a big house near campus. The classes were very, elementary and simple, and they really gave us good lives over there. To the point that like halfway through, I asked, I'm like, hey, if nobody comes next year, can I stay a second year? I don't even
Yeah,
know
I
what
mean,
caused that, you know.
you had a pretty good life in Montana. What was different about Japan?
Let's see the yeah, yeah, it was a city. We were more in a city, and you're meeting more international, you're meeting a ton of international kids. I hung out with so many English people from England, and we had a couple from Italy. We had some Australians, and I'd never really known any Europeans, um, or any foreigners really. Maybe, naturally Southern Cal, you knew some Mexican people. But yeah, I hung out with them as much as I was learning Japanese. I was also just hanging out with other foreigners, and, you're running around town, you're playing soccer, you're, going to bars and coffee shops. That was all new to me.
I like it. You go to Japan and you meet a bunch of English people.
Yeah, it was
That's the
hilarious. Yeah,
traditional
which
cultural
is,
experience.
yeah, yeah, it was great.
So, how did your college experience end? Did you graduate? Did you say, I'm going to become a
I
famous
would have liked to
comedian?
stay. I should have probably stayed over there and become completely fluent instead of just, I
Mhm.
became proficient, but I was like, ooh, I need another. I mean, Japanese is not like obviously a Western language where I can,
Not like Spanish or
yeah,
something.
yeah. It took 2 years just to get to like basic, and especially with all the running around and having fun and not studying as much as I should have been. But I was like, oh, if I stayed longer, I could really learn this language. But then I was also missing Montana. I was like, now I'll really appreciate it because just all
Mhm.
that open space, and I can go back. And I had a new look on life about foreign students. So when I went back, I became friends with all the exchange students at Carroll College, from Nepal, from Yugoslavia. The war was going on there all those years. And we had a ton of Russian and Chinese students, and I could really feel some of what they were going through, and being far away from home. So I befriended a lot of foreign students, and then I knew a lot of the football guys still. So it was weird for football guys to be like, why does this guy know all these things about China and Korea and like Russian history, and he's friends with these Japanese. And then they were all like, oh, this guy's like friends with the big football dudes and the jocks and stuff like that. So it was pretty fun to be kind of a, I guess, a conduit for a lot of students there. And so
Yeah,
I
you
took
actually
4 years,
broadened your horizons. Yeah.
6 years of college, like it took me.
6 years.
Yeah.
Did you get a master's in those 6 years?
No masters, two undergraduate degrees, two bachelors, I guess.
What did you study?
International relations and psychology. I picked psychology because both Jimmy Johnson and Lou Holtz were psych majors, and I thought I was going to get into football coaching after playing football.
Well, those are good mentors to have.
Yeah, they were good
But
dudes.
you took a different path. I mean, we met through stand-up, but when did you get interested in comedy, and who were some of the comedians you looked up to when you were a kid?
Yeah, that's great. All throughout that process from freshman year of college, I just started writing I'm like, this would be a funny idea for a sketch. This would be a funny scene in a movie. So I was always kind of writing and had a bunch, crazy ideas, just this, I don't know, the canvas of whatever. Well, I grew up, I think the heyday of comedy film was the 80s, just, and it hit. And if you were young at that time, then it really had a profound effect on you. I mean, people talk about the 70s being the ultimate time for film, but I think comedy movies, it was the 80s into the 90s, from the John Hughes stuff, from the graduates of SNL. They made great stuff. And then into the 90s with the Coen brothers and some of the maybe darker stuff with the Wes Anderson, the Kevin Smith, all those independent, Linkletter, Noah Baumbach. And I was kind of right in that wheelhouse age-wise to grow with that. And I just loved it, man. I just loved it all the way through Seinfeld and Frasier. And
I think when I was homesick as a kid, I would always I'd watch Revenge of the Nerds.
oh, brilliant.
Or I try to find the Porky's tape. What were some of your favorite 80s or 90s movies?
I loved obviously Ghostbusters and Animal House and Blues Brothers were great. Ferris Bueller's Day Off,
Classic.
16 Candles, those kind of endearing. And the problem was I watched those thinking, oh, I'm a white guy. I can just keep being cute and screwing up, and it's cute. And then all of a sudden you wake up at 50, like, this isn't cute. This isn't cute at all, man.
But in the middle, there's some fun anecdotes. So
Yeah.
that's what we have to look back on, Pat. So you had this penchant to write, and you're in Montana. But when was it you're like, all right, I'm gonna give comedy a shot?
So I graduated college 97 and then went to San Francisco because so many of my friends, a lot of Southern California, Orange County kids, they're like, where are we going to do our
There's so much culture,
yeah, like where are we going to do our thing for a couple years before we all move back and have our families and live the exact
Right.
same lives as our parents? And then it was San Francisco. Now I don't know now it might be, I don't know, Phoenix or
Austin, probably, or Phoenix,
Austin,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was San Francisco back then in the late 90s. And I did that shipping job out in Oakland. I worked in shipping, and that was brutal. It was all dudes, sales, operations, and it was just cargo, and it was merchant marine stuff, and it was just like, oh my God. I'm like, what am I doing? I love Japan. I love pageantry. I love, and I'm sitting on the docks, like in a jumpsuit or whatever, like over my suit and tie, and it's union, it's Teamsters and longshoremen battling,
Oh
and I'm
wow.
Terry Malloy or something. I'm like, this is crazy, man. I haven't seen a woman, And I was living in San Francisco, going to Oakland every day. I'd go BART and then a bus, or no, I'd go a bus and then BART and then another bus. So people called me BART Sandwich because it was like it took forever. And then I finally got a car, and I was like, this isn't what I want to be doing at a cubicle job at all. So I did that for a little while, just a year and a half. And then just to cleanse the palate, I took a teaching job in Korea for a year in
Mm.
99. So in my 20s, I had the rare opportunity of living in Japan for 2 years, Korea for one. And again, met a ton of foreigners. When I was teaching in Korea, I never really learned the language. I learned the alphabet, but not. I was teaching English. The kids knew enough to get by day to day, and it forced them to speak English if I couldn't, lean on Korean.
You were giving them the language immersion they needed.
Yes, yeah, out of sheer laziness. But no, that was good. And with the plan of like, okay, when I get back from Korea after that year, I'm moving to LA and starting stand up. And all that was fun. Those were different. Like I could have stayed in Montana, I could have stayed in Orange County or Asia teaching English or getting on commercials or doing voiceover. But that was the first time moving to LA where I was like, okay, I'm moving, and it can take a while. I don't have to see results for a year or two or three, where every other place.
It can take a while. I can be at this for 18 months before I
Yeah.
hit it big.
Yeah.
So yeah, what was your expectation of LA, and then what was the reality?
Yeah, right. That I think it's probably always changing, that kind of business. But yeah, moving up there, I got a job in publicity that I would do it by day. I'd be done by 5 or 6 and then just start hitting open mics left and right. I did take a class at the Irvine Improv because I came home from Korea, stayed with my family for a little while, took a class at the Irvine Improv while I was looking for work in LA and with Jeff Jenna, and did stand up there. And about like halfway through that class, I got a job up in LA in marketing and was doing open mics at night. And it's fun, man. When you were starting out, I was like, this is all fun. Like, this is all
Oh,
fun.
so fun. Yeah, I mean, for the I guess the civilians out there,
Yeah.
who maybe haven't been to an open mic, and I hope for their sake they haven't. What's it like, especially like in the early 2000s? What do you
Yeah, I mean,
recall from those
you're
days?
just happy to wait. Like I remember not caring. Like, okay, we're gonna be here for 4 hours or 3 hours,
Hmm.
and you put your name on the list. Hopefully, you get there early enough, and usually it's 5 minutes at whatever bar, coffee shop, restaurant, and nobody's any good, and it's mostly comics in the room, unless it's some weird somebody that lives nearby that's a masochist and wants to watch 3 hours of amateur comedy, or it's a couple college kids getting drunk, and maybe they're even doing stand up. And usually the comics have to buy an item, like buy a drink, give $5 to the establishment. And you sit and you go through and you see who sucks and who doesn't and who's got which skills. And oh, he's a good writer. She's a great performer. She's smart, but maybe not funny necessarily. This kid's a drug addict. This kid came from a broken home. That kid is Ivy League funny, but not really to human beings funny, and everyone kind of, figures it out, hopefully. And you develop friendships or at least acquaintanceships, and you see
Yeah.
each other on the scene night to night over the years. Weird bonding, weird, like, you see people on social media today, and I'm like, man, we were doing mics together, open mics 25 years ago. And I don't, some people you don't even have, some people you just have a weird, just not even friendship, but like recognition relationship with. And it's like, wow, we never even.
Right. It's like you see them in person and it's totally cool, but I wouldn't really want to hang out with them otherwise or follow their tweets or whatever. But who are some of the acquaintanceships or the friendships you cultivated during this
I'd
time?
say like Brian Keith Etheridge, Brian Irwin, Aaron Cater, Tom Clark, Stephanie Escajeda, some of those people, Craig Coleman, Matt Fultron, some of those guys, Tommy Segura and Christina, they started about that time.
Is Segura still doing stand up?
I think they dabble. I think they dabble.
Yeah, I think they do. No, I mean some of those people you mentioned are, not just Tom and Christina, but like the best comedic minds, and I include you in that. And it's on one hand it's exciting because it's a chance to be around all these brilliant people, but it also shows like how tough of a business it is. I mean, like what I guess now that you've matured through it, what do you think for if someone's like, I want to make it as a professional, I want to make money in it.
I would say LA can eat you alive, and it's not like malicious necessarily. It's just like your time, distractions. I was doing that, and then all of a sudden I'm like doing commercial auditions, and I'm like, okay, I'm worried about headshots. I'm worried about a website. I'm worried about acting lessons. I'm taking a sketch improv class, but also an comedy acting class. So it's like, okay. And all of a sudden you're getting away from creating, you're getting away from stand up, you're writing from the outside in, like, what's
Mhm.
my sitcom set, what's my 5 minute, and it's like, man, yeah, that's not necessarily the healthiest. So I would say limit your focus a little bit, because I just let it go for a decade or two, and just trying to make sizzle reels, create shows. And it's like, okay, strategize. You want to give those first 2 or 3 years away, or whatever it takes, 7 years away, but eventually you want to strategize. And now it's nice. Now get the podcast or blog or the social media if you want Instagram to be your thing, or TikTok. And but all the while you're still writing stand up. But I was throwing way too much at the wall for way too long, and only now, 25 years in, am I starting to be like, okay, let's limit this. Let's go. Let's not worry. I'm trying to make it as a groundling. I'm like bouncing around level 2 or 3 for years, and I'm like, what? That's not my strength. Like, and it's not necessarily my interest. The line for stand up is much shorter than sketch or acting. Like, let's use these muscles.
I think I spent as much time with the groundlings as I did in college. Almost as much money when all is said and done. Like at least with stand up, it's just you. I mean, it's hard to coordinate 4 or 5 people's schedule if you're an improv troupe. At least comparatively, stand up's easier. I'd like to learn more about your joke writing process. You're one of my favorite joke writers. For people out there, he's one of the best in the business.
Oh,
He won't admit it, but he's fantastic. So good that it pisses me off sometimes, but that's my own insecurity, not him. Yeah, take us through your process. Like how do you come up with jokes? How do you refine them?
that's great, man. I think like you, like a lot of us, there's some things that hit you, and you're like, oh my God, it's like a gift from the universe. You're like, that's mine. Like, was I the first to this thought? And you're like, oh, good. And then some premises you have that you're like, I really want to nail this, but I can't get my head around. I could never, in 25 years, I still can't get a joke about Sports Illustrated for kids. Like we had to dumb down a magazine that's about pictures. And maybe that's the joke in itself. I don't know, but like I've never been able to get it to work, really. I don't know what working it. Maybe sometimes a little laugh is enough and you get to the next joke. I don't know. But I always wanted a bigger laugh on that joke that I never got. So it's somewhere in between there. You just write, jokes, jokes, jokes. I find it's like jokes, then jokes about me, and then me. That's what the transition for a comic is, I think. Because now, and a lot of comics now are jumping right to me. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like Carlin had to earn it. Mark Maron had to earn it. Like, you know, some of these people are starting out on, as they say, third base or whatever. And I'm like, can you be funny first? Like, let's be funny and silly and don't just go up and go, oh, the president. And it's like, okay,
Yeah,
we're all wide open minded. Hit me. And
hit
it's
me.
like, oh no, but he just sucks. And it's like, wow, great, great show.
Well, I think you hit on something that bugs me is, especially with younger comics, I think there's a tendency to want to get applause over laughs. But what say you, Patrick?
That's a great point. Applause over laughs. Yeah. Um, yeah, I just, I've been opening for David Spade a lot, and he doesn't touch political stuff. He's like, it's so hard to get people to laugh. Why would you want to divide that then in half? Unless it's something right down the middle, of course, which I always liked. But yeah, that is interesting, the applause versus laughter. Yeah, I think we've lost a lot of silliness, and
Hmm.
like when I'll tell some jokes, and maybe some of the younger comics will be like, oh, he does a lot of dad jokes or whatever. And I'm like, dude, please, like, you want to go hang in the streets? I'll show you like where I've, started and where, who I've dated. And we could talk about how your hipster little perspective is a lot more orthodox than my lifestyle or anything like that. But no,
For
yeah, you
sure.
got to go for, I think, laughs first, man. Like, that's the beauty of me having spent a lot more time out of LA these last 5 years is, oh, I'm not just trying to be funny for the industry or for LA or Hollywood. There's places in Oklahoma or Missouri or whatever, upstate, any state away from the city, whether it's a country club or some weird, I don't know, private gig or someone's backyard. It's like, oh yeah, but like these jokes will still work. Watching Brian Kiley, it just blows my mind every time. I'm like, this guy's stuff works on military bases in the Middle East. It works in cities, at bars, at clubs, at private events, at country clubs, and they're very retellable jokes, which is fun too. But yeah, a lot of the younger people think it's uncool to maybe go through that process a little bit. They want to skip it.
I was in LA, gosh, about 15 years. I started there early in comedy, and in some ways, I'm really glad I did because I think it's probably the hardest place to cut your teeth. Now that you moved out, what's different?
Yeah, that's good question. COVID hit and obviously wiped out everything. More so, I think LA was affected more by Uber and then by COVID than any other city. I think it transformed one in a positive, the other in a negative. And I was just driving down to Orange County where I grew up on weekends during COVID just for some sanity. Because I was like, this doesn't make sense that this place, everything's wide open and everybody seems fine. And I know yeah, I know it's less crowded, but it doesn't make sense. And then to go up where it's like this war zone or half mat hazmat suits, I'm like, well, I'm not going to stay up here on weekends. So I just kind of kept sneaking down there, and I'm like, is this allowed? And I gave LA a shot one year into COVID, and then I was like, you know what, I'm out. I had this offer to work at my old high school because one of my friends and teammates from high school and then college, Andy, he's like, do you want to come work at the high school as a sub and maybe work in alumni relations and be around here? And we really need re-engagement with the school. So that was a quick little fix to just go an hour 15 south. And then, I didn't do a lot of stand up those 3 years of COVID, but I did a lot of writing. And then coming out of that, it was nice to do more long form stuff, like not have to worry, oh no, because in LA, I'm just like, oh no, it has to be a little room like Seinfeld was in when they were doing his show. Those interstitials they used, it has to be. And I wrote for that because I thought, oh, stand up will be fun. Those little rooms are nice. That's not even close to what stand up is. I mean, we're doing roadside bars, we're doing restaurants, we're doing these places where people weren't even expecting a show. So getting out of LA helped me kind of open up the offense a little bit, think less, write more, try more on stage, be more conversational than presentational. And hopefully that's growing. And I'm just like, there's a beautifulness to this. And a lot of people are further along than I am in a shorter time. I try not to focus on that and just be like, well, yeah, but look at how, look at your own trajectory.
Yeah. So speaking of, your trajectory took you outside of Orange County. Why'd you leave?
because I wanted to get deeper into the stand up and away from a day job. I always had kind of a job to fall back on, to lean on, until about last July. So this is the first year where it's only been stand up, and only, you know what I mean? And it's rough. I see how rough it can be. And because you're just like going up and there's nothing to lean. You're like, I need to make more money from this or a career. And you're like, I need to get deeper. How do I get deeper? How do I get more laughs? How do I get more comfortable up there? What's going on? Why are some people so good so early? Or at least maybe not so good, but just way more accepted and become industry darlings much sooner. So yeah, so I've been back and forth between Arizona and New York. I kind of have a place I'm staying in New York, and then my family's here in Arizona. So I go back and forth between those two, which is weird, back and two completely opposite sides of the world, universe, and
Well,
philosophy.
it's probably good balance. In terms of the comedy communities, how does Arizona compare to LA or New York or Orange County?
I think the stand-up community exists in New York and even in Arizona. I don't know. In LA, it's a little mixed. It's there's so many people doing so many things that it's not as tight a stand-up structured community. Like in Arizona, there's 7 clubs, 4 good-sized clubs, 3 smaller rooms, but it's great. You work and then you perform, people see you, oh, okay, your name gets referred, boom, boom, boom. You move along a little quicker. Whereas in LA, it's just an abyss. It just seemed like an abyss. I mean, like, how do you get headway? It's fun, but you've got to get in one lane and you've got to like get the off ramps, find those off ramps, whether it's slowing down the drinking, the socializing, um, dating one person exclusively, getting in a relationship with someone who cares instead of just treating, someone good in your life the same way you treated someone you just met. It's like you need to find those off ramps, and then but in New York's obviously unbelievable for stand up at every level. I mean, there's open mics during the day, during the night, semi book shows, and you just have to do your time if you're going to go to New York. Even at my level, like unless you're a big name or have a huge social media, then you need to go, and you don't get to the end of the line, but you do go about halfway back, and it's going to take a year or two to get to get from like a track, like a NASCAR race, you get on the track, and before you're going the same speed as everyone, it's going to take a while. So I'm still in that process.
Nice. Well, I found in New York the comedians are more willing to help. At least that was my experience than in LA. Like I'd go there for weeks at a time, or a few days here or there, and it's like by the time I left, you meet all these new friends, and they're like, "Oh, do this show, talk to this person." And I think it's because there's so much opportunities. At least in the mid 2000s or early 2000s when I was starting out there, in LA it was not the case. But I think this idea that they're meaner in New York City or the surrounding areas is not true. At least that wasn't my experience.
I think you're exactly right. Yeah, they can send you in the right direction. Hey, this is what you want to do. Boom, boom, boom. There's 5 things instead of 10, or it's like
How does that compare to Arizona? Because it's not the same densely
no.
populated
Arizona's good
area.
because you can kind of work right away, and there's plenty of uh, uh, you know, dojo rooms and stuff like that. But yeah, like I've been here now 2 months, just kind of waiting out the winter, and I've been working with Frank Caliendo a little bit and Spade, and then yeah, I've been working every weekend opening for different people, which is not necessarily the case right away in New York. So I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to go back to New York if I'm working every weekend. That's the idea here. But I will say it's pretty supportive because you're more of a civil. There's more civilians. The ratio in Arizona is like, oh my God, you do comedy, whereas in New York it's like, oh cool, or LA it's like, oh cool. But yeah, I find more support for sure in New York. But Arizona's a good option. I don't know why. It's only 6 hours from LA, which weirdly gets shorter every year because there's more stops on the drive and more gigs are popping up. So I think that should be taken.
Yeah, this is a very total elitist thing to say, but it's like in California, once you're like 45 minutes east, my thing is like, just go to Arizona. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
that's
more I drive out there, it's like it's not that different. You get more for your money. The taxes are not as onerous. Like there's a lot to like about Arizona.
That's so funny. You might as well be in Arizona. Yeah, if you're going whatever to Riverside or Pomona, just go all the way. Do another 5 hours.
Just 5 more hours, and
Yeah.
I'm sure people in Arizona they just want more Californians. They're
Arizona's been great for comedy, I think. A lot of albums recorded over here. I always say that it's a more liberal version of Texas, more structured version of California. And it's kind of a beautiful overlap. Just open-minded, educated, Wild West still, but
that is a good overlap. And leads me to my next question. What do you think makes for a good show?
for good like stand-up comedy
For
show.
good stand-up show, yeah.
I think obviously the laughs, especially at first, and then getting to the core. You really see comics as we get older. I'm like, you're still doing baby talk. Let us know about you. Let us know about either you deeper or world issues deeper, current events, stuff like that, or life experience. I don't want to see a 50, 60-year-old guy in a tight t-shirt doing crowd work to a bunch of girls talking about cosmopolitans.
All right, I gotta get a new act, but thank you
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
for the.
So yeah, Matt, I didn't mean to approach the topic like this.
Sometimes the truth hurts.
But yeah, but also keep it funny and keep it light and keep making fun of yourself. One of the things that's good about COVID is I think it exposed a lot of unnecessary celebrity culture. And like, we just realized like, oh, we don't need you. Yeah, you're no longer famous in our brain or important. Like, I still, I'm old fashioned. I like the concept of a movie star, of like, not just somebody that, oh yeah, they were on this show or that, or like they hang, I don't know. I just don't.
Yeah, I was talking to Brian Scalaro about one of his idols, and one of my favorite actors, John Candy. And you really didn't know that much about him other than his work.
Yeah.
And I miss that. Especially with movie stars. I think comedians, they're kind of a different animal, but it's sort of nice to just say, like, oh, that guy is super, like, talented at this. And then I don't know what he feels like about whatever current event issue du jour. So it was sort of nice to have that separation.
Yeah, no, that was a great time, and Brian's hilarious. He's got great taste in comedy. I see his posts, and yeah,
He's
John,
so funny. What are some of your favorite venues or shows that you've performed at?
I loved in LA. I loved like Temple Bar. I loved Coronet. The improv felt like a showcase club. The
I think
LA,
because it was.
yeah, I didn't always feel great about that room, but I love going there. It's located in a great spot. The belly room at the Comedy Store was always good to us. I remember you and I did that. And Red Rock, the room you used to run was that nice attic. It had perfect intimacy, I thought, and perfect ceiling level and sound acoustics and all that around. But around the country, I loved Acme in Minnesota, Comedy on State in Madison, Wisconsin. Peoria had a good club, the Columbus Funny Bone. Some of the Funny Bones with the personal touch, like Omaha, were really good. Some can be too blown out and full service, and that's no good. Side Splitters in Tampa's good. It's just a perfect San Jose Improv's good. It's like a theater club. Really, it's really about who runs it and the layout of the room and the table that's set for you. There's not, when you walk into a room and you're like, oh my God, this will be great. And then you walk in a room with like high tops, like high tables, and they're spread out. I'm like, this isn't good. I don't like what they did with the Ice House. I don't like what they did with it. I don't know if you've seen that.
I haven't seen it since
Yeah,
the remodel.
it was like a little cage. It was great. And then
Mhm.
they blew it out and it looks like a dance club and a big floor and it's tinny. Jokes echo. I don't like what they did with that. And there was some other place that I don't like. Oh, the Irvine Improv was great. It's bigger now. I like,
No.
yeah. I mean, I still love it, but it was better before. And I also think in the front, they've got it overly lit. They have the front section's overly lit, kind of like Stand Up Live in Phoenix. And that front circle of audience, they're seen. So they don't really laugh. They don't get into it. You could see that they're like, are we on stage with
More
them?
self-conscious. Well, what have you done comedically that you're most proud of?
That's a great question. I think, Jesus, I don't know. I think writing on some shows, funny enough, getting a writing job. I got a job on one of Jesselneck's shows called Good Talk. And I was driving Uber at the time. I got a text or an email like, hey, can you start work for 3 months or whatever it was next Monday? Now, and I thought it was a writing submission. I was like, oh yeah, tell me where to send the writing submission. They're like, oh no, 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 you're hired to write on this show. And oh my God, I had to stop the car. I was like, this is so great. And that show went, and then Uber happened, COVID happened, and it wiped that kind of everything out. But we did a season or two on that, and that's really proud. And then Late Late Show, the first time you get on late night, I was really proud. And my brother came. I didn't tell anybody else, and just my brother came and stood in the back. And it was funny while I'm telling jokes, I could see him in the back, and it's the bleachers kind of. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm telling these right now. And I'm still cognizant enough to see like my brother. There's, hundreds of people there. But yeah, there's nothing like that first time. And it was, a Friday night. It went well. And back then, I think, '07, late night still still mattered a little more, I feel, where it had to be
Mhm.
good. It wasn't like sweetened, or it wasn't some kind of casting thing that they do now.
Good old days. What are you most optimistic about?
I think comedy and writing and like staying healthy and like cleaning up my own, not that I was a junkie ever, but just getting more focused and feeding that and falling in love with your own life a little bit more, and knowing that comedy, there's no limits. There's the internet, there's international markets, there's travel, there's routes through other great comics that could see you. That's always, I've always done better with great comics that saw you, that gave you a chance, that produced something of yours, that gave you a writing job. Industry people, the gatekeepers, I was never good with. Bookers or networks or stuff like that. It was just like, and then you see them at parties or out at social venues, and you're just like, am I going to look fake if I go up and try to talk to them? So I'll just avoid them. So then you seem, aloof by avoiding them because you don't want to do something stupid, clumsy, awkward, and you can't win. So, and I don't think you can be yourself. So I just like comics, producing more comics content. I see what Nate Bargatze's doing and some of these guys, and Vince Vaughn does a lot of that stuff. And um, so I'm optimistic about that, and just continuing to write, and like, and if it doesn't happen, great. But what else are you going to do? There's nothing else I want to do.
Yeah, well, I'm optimistic about seeing what Patrick Kane is up to next. So, for people out there, where can they learn more about you, what you're up to, where you're performing?
Yeah, thank you, buddy. I'm on Keen of Comedy is on Instagram and TikTok, and online keenofcomedy.com. That I'll have all the clips and shows, and I also have a podcast called Keen on Things.
Check it out. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks. Good seeing you, buddy.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Matt Balaker podcast. To learn more, please check out mattbalaker.com and encourage your friends to like, subscribe, and share. Really appreciate it.